All right, well, welcome back from your break. My name is Brooks Buser, and this is my wife, Nina Buser, and we're going to give you a little bit of our story and a little bit of background to us. And we actually have pictures for this one. So Nina and I met in college way back in the Eon days in 1995. We met in freshman orientation, and she was running freshman orientation, and I was a new freshman. And I remember her walking in and telling the guy next to me, "I'm going to marry that girl." And he said, "Good luck." Do you see the guy walking in behind her? They're a few weeks away from getting engaged. So through a lot of prayer and all the 20 bucks I had in my bank account and a bad Honda Civic, somehow through God's great sovereignty, they broke up. And I was right there to move in. It was fabulous. And we got married. This was about 3 dates into the picture, I think. If I got the clicker working here, that was us way back in the Wogie days. When we were on our third date, and we started talking about what it would be like when we graduated from college. And so we graduated, and my wife got a degree in counseling psychology. I got a degree in business administration, and like most of you, we had student debt, and we started working. I had a gift for accounting, and I started working in an accounting firm, and then eventually for a Dutch company, and worked my way up the ladder pretty good, and eventually was accounting manager, and then eventually was CFO of a Dutch multinational company. We were living in the Netherlands and in France and a little bit in Germany, and we paid off our student debt within 9 months. And we started looking at houses in some of the nicer areas of San Diego, and nice cars to drive, and jet skis, and different things like that. And guys, I can honestly say that we would have continued on this path if it wouldn't have been for our time in the Word, for our time sitting down regularly, daily, and regularly being in church and having that speak into our lives. We never got a missionary call, as J.D. Greer was talking about Cheerios last night. That never happened for us. We never saw missionary in the sky or in the sand when we were coming out of the beach in San Diego. We read our Bibles, we believed what it said, and we had the confirmation of our local church elders. So we walked away from that job. We started going towards missionary training. We realized that if we're going to walk away from this job, we wanted to go someplace where the gospel had never been before. And so we went and we got 2 years of specialized training to learn how to translate, to learn how to speak a language that had never been written down before, how to live in some of these places where the last unreached people groups exist to this day. And so we finally left for the country of Papua New Guinea in 2003.
All right, so we arrived in Papua New Guinea, and we had our son with us, Bo Buser. He's here somewhere. Anyway, so we arrived to Papua New Guinea, and it took the first 9 months to learn the national language of the country, which was Melanesian Pidgin. And after that, leadership handed us a list of tribes that had been asking for missionaries for 5 years or more. So on this list was 7 tribes. And we landed in, we just prayed through it and decided to go to the Yumbi Yumbi. So the other one was our house going up. This is a picture of our son. We got there and they adopted us into clans. Our son, who's an only child, all of a sudden had 7 brothers and 13 sisters. This is my mom and my 2 sisters. To really be in the Yumbi Yumbi, they wanted us to become part of them. And we wanted to become part of them as well. So I became a member of the Eagle Clan. My husband is a member of the Ostrich Clan. And, and so they adopted us into these clans. We had these families. And it was such a privilege to get to know them and to get to become one of them. Part of it was just living daily life with them, learning how to do things. This is my husband and my tribal papa, teaching Brooks how to hunt. So in order for a boy to become a man in Yumbi Yumbi, they needed to hunt a pig at night in the jungle with a spear. So this is him learning how to do it, and his first pig he got. So it was a huge celebration in the tribe that day. But we were just doing these things day in and day out, trying to be with them, learning how to cook, learning their language, learning their culture. And as we were doing that, we were earning the right to speak into their lives. So obviously there's some exciting things that happen. You know, you see these pictures of the alligator and or the crocodile and the snakes and all that. Let me just tell you guys, I am not a jungle person. I don't even like camping. It takes a lot to do that for me, but I tell you what, God is amazing, and he can take very ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Amen. So it was, like I said, a privilege to learn to be among them, learning their culture and their language, and we were just so thankful. And then finally, as we got done learning their language, which took a few years, we taught them how to read and write their own language. So as David was talking about passion for God's word, before we even got to present the gospel to them, we wanted them to be able to read and write in their own language. So that way, when we translated the scriptures, they had that in their own language. They didn't have to just go off of what we said. They had it for themselves. So it was very important for us. So in order to do that, we taught them literacy. And this is some of my moms. This is the first literacy class. Some of them had never held pencils before. So we were very excited to watch as they grew in knowledge of that and preparing for them what they were going to be hearing. And this is the ladies. I can't tell you what a joy it was to walk around the tribe at night. This was a little bit later after this, but hearing them practice reading the Bible in their own language, especially these older ladies who had never thought that they would read on their own. So it was just such a joy.
So they learned how to read and write for the first time in their own language, and then we told them we were going to do 4 things. Number 1, we were going to learn your language. We were going to learn how to speak the way you guys speak. Number 2, we're going to teach you how to read and write. Number 3, we're going to translate this book, this really important book, into your language. And number 4, we're going to teach you the meaning of that book. And that time had finally come, because now they had literacy. We had the translated portions that we were ahead, and we started teaching them the creation to Christ story, what Sam and Madi is walking you guys through section by section here at Cross. We went through that in 3 months, and this was the first day of teaching, and nearly the entire tribe turned out to see what was going to be of this talk. And there's about 1,000 of them, and the Yembi-Yembis aren't like you guys. You guys have sat in institutional learning for many years. You know when it's appropriate to laugh, when it's appropriate to be quiet, when to sit down. They've never done any of that, and so the speaker stands in the middle, and they sit in a circle around you. And if they like what you're saying, they'll stand up and yell from anywhere, "Keep talking, this talk is good to my belly," because the belly is the seat of their emotions. Ours is our heart, theirs is their belly. And so if they don't like what you're saying, they'll also yell from anywhere, "Enough, shut your mouth, I'm throwing this talk up." And so you knew really quickly how you were doing. So this was the first day that we actually taught, and putting this context, putting the gospel narrative into context. This was in real time and space. There was this country in Israel, and that country, there was these prophets that God spoke to, and that's where we get this book from. And you guys are following along in your translated copies, and we didn't have full books done at that point, but we had enough of it, and we started progressing through the biblical narrative, and we finally got to Genesis chapter 3, the hinge of the entire story of humanity. And what happened in Genesis chapter 3, so we would teach and then we would act things out. This is the first man. We would teach and we would act things out. And the Yembis loved the acting because they could concretely see what was happening with that. But when we acted out the actual fall of mankind, I was Satan. I had this black bedsheet on my head, and my coworker's wife, she was Eve, and I'm whispering to her, whispering loud enough for 1,000 people to hear, "Eve, Eve, just eat the fruit, and you'll be just like God." And we're walking around in a circle, and we had this little tree, and we tied a piece of fruit to it, and she's reaching for the fruit, and the Yembis are getting up and pulling her hand down, and they're not wanting her to follow through with this because they're into this story. They don't see fables and fairy tales. They see their ancestors, and she picks the fruit, and everybody goes quiet. And the best thing that happened that came out of that was the story that came afterwards, Cain and Abel. Someone stood up because we told them, this is the ramifications of the curse, but there's going to be one coming after this who's going to make things right between God and man again. And the next story we got to with Cain and Abel, someone stood up and said, wait, stop the talk. Again, they're Yembis. They're not used to sitting down for long periods of time. And he said, "Is this the one?" I said, "What do you mean? This one Cain that you're talking about, is he the one who's going to make things right between God and man again?" "No, he's not the one." Every Old Testament character that we introduced, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon, someone got up. Is he the one who's going to make things right that Adam and Eve broke when they ate the fruit? And this was the story as we went through the teaching time and seeing the Yembis respond to the Old Testament as it was pointing the way to the one who would make things right. Everything we would teach, we would act out so that they would concretely understand this. And getting to the point to where they're listening and they're being involved in this story. And finally, we get to the New Testament. And one of the privileges of my life is in John chapter 1, we get into the life of Jesus for the first time. And John the Baptist sees Jesus walking alongside the River Jordan. And John the Baptist says, look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. And like 7 or 10 Yembis stand up and they go, wait. Is he the one? Is he the one who's going to make things right between God and man again? Privilege of my life to say he's the one, guys. Oh man, the Yembis going nuts. Stop the talk of John who dunks in water. We want to hear the talk of this one. And this is the first Yembi baptism. The church was born after that. We had the gospel presented, and we had about 40 to 50, and how those 40 to 50 lived and how they died ended up bringing over half of the village into the church. This is the first Yembi who was baptized. He paid a pretty heavy price. There was about 7 of them that got baptized on that first baptism. And about 9 months later, he got cerebral malaria and he went to be with the Lord. And guys, I'll never forget when we buried his body. He was gone. His body remained. He was gone. And we sat around the rest of the church. At that time, it had grown to about 200. And we talked about what it must have been like in heaven. The first Yembi, the first one who speaks that language, going to heaven. What a day that must have been like.
So let me just tell you guys, that's all amazing and wonderful, and that's why we went there. But it's not the ultimate goal of the reason for us staying. The ultimate goal to stay is to have a mature church planted. And so it took us 8 more years of living with them, just teaching them, translating, doing Bible studies, to get them to a point where they could be standing on their own. This is a picture of me with the deacon and elders' wives as we are going through the Bible and doing different Bible studies. I was teaching them how to do a Bible study, how to read the Bible on their own and understand it and like cross-reference and all the things. They didn't know any of that, so we needed to teach them so that someday, as you guys are college students, some of you might be with your parents still, some of you might be on your own. Eventually, the goal is for you to get out, right? Like to be on your own, and that's the same thing for a church. You want them to stand on their own as healthy individuals. So we were taking them through all the different things, helping them grow. And as we were doing that, we were also able to help other people in the country of Papua New Guinea. My husband was a consultant for language and also for church planning, so we got the privilege of going into different tribes and encouraging the workers in there and helping them plan the next step for language or what to do next for church planning. So we did this for years, and then as we got to the end of our time there, finally in 2013, we had the first elders and deacons, we named the first elders and deacons who are there now leading the Yembi church. They teach them, they do church discipline, they lead Bible studies. They just recently went out to do help another tribe in the area and encourage that church. So that's the goal. It's not just to learn the language. It's not just to have converts. The goal is to have a mature church planted so that someday they can take the gospel to somebody else.
So the last few slides, we finished up our time in 2016, came back to the United States, but before we did that, we were working on finishing up the scriptures. I was in charge of translating all the Pauline epistles, all the gospels except for the book of Mark, the book of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and most of the Pentateuch. That's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So that was my job. This is probably my best friend in the world. His name is Tarangawi. Tarangawi had an eidetic memory. I would read for him for the first time half a chapter of the book of Romans, and he could bring it back in one memory recall without any notes, anything written down. He was just an incredible gift to our church and to seeing the scriptures brought to the Yembi people for the first time. And so through all of this, this was the actual day that we finished the Yembi New Testament translation. This was a day of days. We would translate a book, and then we would quickly print it off at a local print store, and we would bring it back in, and then we would teach through that book for a few months. And then we would translate ahead and try and get another book done. And so when we got back to the Yembis for the last time, this is the last picture that I have. This was last year, 2019. We go back every year. We came back in 2016 to work with Radius, and we're incredibly privileged to be there. But this is a picture from last year, seeing the Yembi elders and the elders in training. That's what those guys are, and we're going back in 4 months to visit them again for the next time. But we finished up the Yembi translation, and we told them we're going to fly it in, and we're going to hand it out to the church members. And they said, "Oh, Brooks, you're thinking like an American again." They said, no, not what we're going to do. What we're going to do is this. We're going to invite all of the different tribes around us for the day that we bring in the New Testament. We bring in all the compiled scriptures, and we're going to have a party. And we want you to invite the mama churches, the churches that sent Nina and I out, that sent our coworkers out. And we want them to come all the way from the cold country. That's what they call America. Very appropriate right now. They said, we want them to come from the cold country, and we want to have a big party. And we'll have a celebration, and we'll do it in the national language so that the other tribes around can hear this. For the first time, we have the scriptures in our language. And so there was a documentary crew that came over. They did a longer video, but we kind of compiled the last 5 minutes of that so you can see what it was like the day that the Yembi got their Bible translation portions for the first time. So watch this, and then we'll do a little talk after.
After 9 years, the moment has come. The missionaries have phased out of the tribe, leaving a church body with trained pastors for a new generation. The last step is providing them with a Bible in their native tongue. This occasion is honored by a dedication that brings hundreds of native believers, neighboring missionaries, and even supporters from back home. It's a celebration of heavenly proportions.
I want to hear the music play. I want to hear the trumpet sound. I want to hear you call my name and watch my feet lift off the ground. I will run, oh, and I won't quit chasing your heart, just like David did. I'll come running through the gates, look into your face, oh, I can hardly wait until you carry my soul away.
I used to wonder, what am I doing here? Will this matter? Will it even last? Now I just stand and wonder. How did God take us, a few regular people, to this remote village in the middle of the jungle to plant the seed of His Word and watch it grow, watch it transform, and see the dead brought to life, and hear a new people proclaim God's glory in their own language.
Carry my soul away.
This is just one story of one tribe, but there are thousands just like them, still waiting to hear.
Pretty awesome by God's grace. And we praise God for his grace in you guys specifically, and the way, I mean, what a illustration of what we just looked through in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. So, all right, you guys are not living among the Yimby right now. What are you guys doing right now? And how does that play into what's happening in this room right now?
So right now we work with Radius International. It's a school that trains missionaries to go to the last unreached people groups. So yeah, it's a privilege now. We kind of came out of Yimby with a specific skill set. So now we get to teach others to do what we did, which is such a privilege.
So yeah, Radius, how does it look? Like if there's obviously information about this at you guys' booth, but what would it look like for a student? What kind of student should come to consider Radius? What would it look like if they did?
Yeah, Radius is a very focused school on unreached people groups and planting churches. So if you're not going to unreached people groups and if you're not looking to plant churches among them, we're definitely not the school for you. But if you're headed towards unreached people groups, if you're looking to plant churches, which is going to take a longer time than just giving them the gospel, we're the school that we look for 3 years for something like Radius before it came into being. And so out of that, a bunch of pastors from, I think some of them talked to you, a bunch of guys from Southern California got together and say, how do we build a school that will give them all the necessary practical skills? There's good seminaries out there that can give them biblical skills, but how do they learn the practical ways? Because as you and I have talked about before, the last unreached people groups are the hardest ones to get to. The easy ones have been reached. It's the hard ones that are left. And so to create a school that will help them for that task.
So to go to a school in a cross-cultural context, I've been down to Radius. Actually got abandoned on the street by some of your guys, but that's a whole other story. Most of them are really kind. No, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. And I know there's like, how many Radius students are here right now?
So we have an abnormal amount of active students. So there's about 30 of them that are in class right now, or they're on Christmas break, but they're in the middle of their Radius training. So there's about 30 of them, and there's about 10 of our graduates that are floating around here and a few staff. So there's a lot that can speak to the program right now.
And many of them were sitting in seats just like you are sitting in right now a year, 2, 3 ago. So I know you guys have an event even specifically targeting creating opportunities for those kind of conversations. Tell us about that.
So tomorrow at 3 o'clock in room A and B, the ballroom downstairs, A and B, 3 o'clock. She's given up 5 things women should know before they go overseas at 2:45, and then she is skedaddling down to there because we are going to have that little breakout. So if people are interested in it, it's a unique program. There's really nothing like it. And so just to get a feel for, would this be a fit for me? Could I possibly enter this school? We're not a sending agency. The sending agencies come to us and recruit Radius grads to go with them. And so what would this be like if I went to that? So 3 o'clock tomorrow down in room A and B.
So basically, if I could just put an exclamation point on that. If you are interested in exploring what it would look like to potentially be trained to go to an unreached people group and be a part of planting the church there, I would highly encourage you to be a part of this time. Again, 3 o'clock, ballrooms A and B tomorrow. So put that on your calendar and go and just get to know them. I mean, with all these students who are here, who are pretty close to the shoes you're in, to be able to talk with them about that and find out more information. Anything else you'd add when you think about Radius overall?
Not really. We'll try and not leave you on the street.
Yeah, whatever, man. So, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to lead us in a time of prayer. Can you give it up for the visitors? Like,